Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Before I begin today, a big thank you to Blade Charge for the virtual gift voucher. Thank you very much for the support, my friend. It is truly appreciated, thank you. But on to today. Today we discuss the Thousand Sons and their recall to Terra, and just what their punishment may well have been. General spoiler warning to begin, as we will be discussing events from the Horus Heresy, so you have been warned. But with that said, let's just jump straight in. So the tale of the Thousand Sons, cast into the role of traitor legion, thanks to the arrogance of their Primarch, Magnus the Red. We all know the tale by now. Magnus, witnessing Horus's betrayal within the warp, used his powers of sorcery to warn his father the Emperor, thus breaking the Edict of Nicaea in the process. And not to mention, ruining the Emperor's grand webway project, the culmination of everything the Emperor of mankind had been building to over the centuries. With one simple act, Magnus caused the death of thousands of the Emperor's loyal servants. If you haven't seen our discussion on the age-old debate, was Magnus wrong? Be sure to go back and check that one out. But regardless of that, the consequences of this act was for Leman Russ and his Space Wolves to be dispatched to bring Magnus and the Thousand Sons to Terra, to face the Emperor's judgment. The fact this wasn't meant to be is obviously one of the most pivotal moments of the heresy. Horus Lupercal, intercepting the order, orders the infamous raising of Prospero in its stead. But the question we're focusing on today is just what would have been Magnus and his legion's fate had Russ taken them to Terra. As ever with speculation, there is no right or wrong answer, because it's just our opinion on where the story could have gone. And like I always say, that's truly the beauty of the lore, allowing our imaginations to be fired. But the first and most obvious scenario could well have been the abolition of the Thousand Sons Legion. The entire legion expunged from Imperial record, joining the fate of the lost two Primarchs before them. And this is of course extremely possible, and some might say even the most likely outcome. Make no mistake here, the Thousand Sons broke the Edict of Nicaea, a very clear and definitive decree. In the Emperor's own words, "Woe betide he who ignores my warning or breaks faith with me. He shall be my enemy, and I will visit such destruction upon him and all his followers that, until the end of all things, he shall rue the day he turned from my light." And while undoubtedly Magnus would be held most responsible, a legion is joined with their Primarch. A vengeful Emperor would regrettably, but decisively, order the legion eradicated. Now, would the legion be disbanded and absorbed by another, or maybe several legions? That's a more difficult question to answer, because we don't or ever will know the reason the lost two Primarchs were expunged. But it was heavily rumoured both of them, or at least one of those legions, had their numbers absorbed into the Ultramarines Legion. So could the same happen with the Thousand Sons? Well, it is obviously possible. The Thousand Sons were one of the smaller legions. Numbers wise it would be a huge boon to whatever accepting legion, but it would be no problem. The reason I don't think it would have happened though, is the sorcery of the Thousand Sons, and the seriousness of their trespass. I just don't think the Emperor or Malcador would have been happy sending out thousands of psykers into the other legions. They'd already broken his law once. Could he really trust them not to do it again? So the execution of the Legion does remain a possibility we just can't rule out, with most likely the same fate for Magnus. However, in the Primarch's case, there may have been an alternative, an imprisonment atop the Golden Throne. Whether willingly or not, Magnus could have been presented a chance to absolve himself in a lifetime of suffering, taking what would be the Emperor's place atop the Golden Throne, holding the webway portal to Terra closed. But overall, this isn't my preferred theory, because honestly, if the Emperor wanted Magnus executed along with his Legion, then he really would have just tasked that order to Russ. There would have been no need for Horus to manipulate it. The Emperor's execution would have been sent to do what he does best: eliminate another brother and Legion. So what else? Perhaps Magnus could have been tasked with bringing the War Master to justice in his stead. Well, that one doesn't really work either, due to the Retribution fleet led by Ferrus Manus already being sent out with that exact objective. So there's no way Magnus could have been involved with that. So the question is, why then bring Magnus and the Thousand Sons to Terra, if not for their execution? Well, as much as I like to believe in the caring Emperor, I also believe Magnus would not simply have been forgiven for his act. It was only his good intentions that stayed the Emperor's hand, in my opinion. If it was not for Magnus's warning that he carried, I truly believe that the order given to Russ from Terra would have been to destroy Magnus and Prospero. But it was not. And the Emperor could not simply forgive Magnus. The ruination he caused, despite his intentions, demanded action. So, I believe Magnus and the Thousand Sons were being brought to Terra to give their true penance, fighting in the War of the Webway. That really would have made all the sense in the world to me. Magnus and his entire Legion were to enter the Webway and join the war against the tide of demons. Magnus able to see firsthand the tragedy his arrogance had caused. Not just the ruin of his father's plan, but the sheer cost of lives. For all Magnus's arrogance, he still very much had a heart. And this of all would have been heartbreaking for him to witness. To know he caused all of this in his hubris, making him fight all the harder for his own redemption. And not only that, it would have brought Magnus face to face with the very creatures and powers the Emperor had long warned him about. Although Magnus was aware of the powers within the Immaterium, to see firsthand an army of demons, that could have truly been the eye-opener Magnus needed. No Cyclops pun intended. It could have been another final lesson by the Emperor. And this, like I said, really makes more and more sense to me the more I think about it. The personal toll for Magnus and the psychic warfare speciality that he and his sons possess, making them the perfect weapon against the demons. The Thousand Sons truly were the prototype of the future Grey Knights. Just imagine it. The Primarch Magnus the Red and his full legion of Thousand Sons ordered into the Webway to win the war or die trying, to undo the damage they had wrought. That would be around about some 85,000 Adeptus Astartes. Led by their Primarch, the greatest sorcerer in the galaxy, aside from the Emperor himself, marching to war against the ruinous powers, alongside the Emperor's own custodes, the 10,000, the Sisters of Silence, the Anathema Psychana, and quite possibly the Emperor himself. You have to believe the tantalizing prospect of an Imperial victory becomes a distinct possibility. At the very least, being able to hold the tide back long enough for the Adeptus Mechanicus to repair the webway. Man, it's yet another amazing what-if story to think about. We may have to make it an ongoing series or something for the channel, because these really would be some great conversations. What if Magnus and the Thousand Sons entered the war for the webway? Man, that is great to think about. And imagine if that distant possibility of victory didn't come to pass. To all intents and purposes, Magnus and the Legion of the Thousand Sons would have entered the Imperial Palace, the throne room itself, and never emerged again. They would have vanished without trace. And what better warning to any other Primarch or Legion daring to contemplate betraying the Emperor's words? The last time another Primarch and Legion tried it, he and his entire Legion vanished without trace, at the hands of the Emperor of mankind. It's a pretty win-win situation for the Emperor, it has to be said. Magnus redeeming himself, or facing his punishment, leaving an ominous lesson for all others. And so the penance of the Thousand Sons would have came to be. Man, I almost wish we had have got to see that instead of the devastation of Prospero. And I'm a Space Wolf guy. The Thousand Sons unleashing everything amidst the webway, giving everything they've got in a desperate attempt to turn back the unlimited tide of demons for their one chance of redemption in the eyes of an emperor they never truly betrayed. Man, what an image that is. Magnus side by side with his father, perhaps for one last time. Oh man, what could have been? But as always guys, what do you think? Just what do you think could have been the fate of the Thousand Sons if they did reach Terra? Could they have entered the webway? Or perhaps would the Emperor have had something else in store entirely? Could Magnus have been forgiven? Or would he have met an ultimate fate? As always, leave your thoughts in the comments below, I love to read them. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. And if you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.